Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8. Well, good morning, dear friends. Welcome. Welcome to the PIMC Sunday morning meditation party. Hello to those of you joining us out in internet land. If you were in Portland today, you'd experience a beautiful, clear, sunny, crisp morning. So to begin, I want to invite you to turn to a neighbor, or if this is a moment when it really makes sense for you to just stay inward, just do that. But otherwise, turn to a neighbor and share your name. And also something that you've done in your life that you're really glad about or you're really proud of. And it doesn't have to be a Nobel Prize or superhero, anything. It could be something very apparently small, but something that you like about yourself, about your past, something that you've done. So, and we'll have just 2 or 3 minutes to do that. the first thing the Buddha taught, which is represented on that hanging, the wall hanging back there to his 5 first disciples. He taught that there's suffering in life. Have you noticed? I was riding my bicycle with my dog in his cart behind, minding my own business, sort of, coming down through the cemetery over on Taylor's Ferry. And there's some big hillside erosion, so there's a big machine and pile driver, and they told me I had to go back. But I thought I had to go all the way back to Taylor's Ferry, a busy street, so I decided I would just go slowly up amongst the tombstones. And at a certain point, Budo, my dog's crate, caught one of the stones and just stopped me. And then I fell awkwardly off my bike, and my right foot hooked on my pedal and gave my hamstrings such a pull. My leg is completely just black and blue. But I managed to bike home, and then it's difficult tying my shoe. Isn't that interesting? Tying one's shoes is quite an advanced skill. And so I got to sit on heating pads and just something simple like that. Out of in a moment, one's life can be much more radically altered than that. But I've had a lot more compassion for myself and how vulnerable we are. How we live on this knife edge of vulnerability. So where to take refuge? The Buddha suggested a long time ago, refuge in being awake, in accepting things the way they are, and doing that in the company of good friends. So that's what the refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are about at one level. Who's here today for the first time? I'm guessing a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My goodness. And you sat right in the front. That's very brave. Huh. So, you're trapped now. I always like to say to those of you that are here for the first time, congratulations for being on a spiritual quest. And also, I hope this morning transforms your life. And if it doesn't, I hope you'll keep looking and find some place that really will fit you so that you can feel really nourished spiritually. Planes. So, let me warm up my fingers here a little bit. They're cold. Clunk, clunk. Come on. Come on. Whoops, hang on, wrong chord. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. And once more, I take refuge who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. People have been chanting or singing those words together for 2,600 years. It's a long time as far as humans go. And there's been an unbroken line of teacher to student transmission of these teachings for all that time. And depending upon how you count generations, it's 120 to 140 generations. So we're here with the blessing, with the transmission of my teacher Ruth Dennison, whose picture is there, and Ruth, whose incredible generosity made this center possible, really, and her encouragement. And then before her, U Ba Khin and the Ledi Eli Di Sayadaw in Burma, and back to the Buddha. So human beings have done what we're doing here for a long time. Why? That was the topic of my talk last week, actually. Why? And the why, one way to look at it, of course, is it helps us relax, stress management. Another why is it helps us become psychologically more mature and more wise, more capable of modulating our emotions and seeing the neurotic, the personal character structures that we have, and therefore being able to act more skillfully. Then there's the question of who am I, which is the spiritual question. Who am I and where did I come from, sort of, and what happens? What happens to me moment to moment? Who sits here? And then all three of those support us in our getting along with each other. How shall I train my heart and mind so that I can become a better participant in my family, in my community, and my responsibilities as a person of this planet? So, we can't do much if we can't be here, because otherwise we're lost in dreams. So let's be here together for a little while, as best we can. Noticing that there's a body. There's a body that happens at this moment to be sitting. And it's possible for the mystery of awareness to know of this sitting, to know that sitting is happening. And it's one thing to know that as an image or an idea or a fantasy. It's another to bring awareness into direct contact with your buttocks where they press against the cushion, or into the life in what you call your hands. Perhaps you could notice the life in your face. And this body breathes. Miracle is piled upon miracle in the human body. Every cell requires oxygen. And since some of them are buried way deep inside, there has to be a circulatory system. And that's powered by the heart and the blood that flows into the capillaries of the lungs. And this impulse to breathe in that happens when there's excess carbon dioxide. Then there's breathing in, and there's this flooding of oxygen all over the body, and an exhale of carbon dioxide. And then with that, we're connected with all of life. To the green beings of the Amazon, to the plankton, to everything that photosynthesizes. Our great being, the earth. And so it's a big thing to become aware of breathing. Seems simple. It is simple. Notice that each breath has a beginning. It then has a rising to fullness, and then a decline, and then a disappearing, ending. You will probably notice also that the mind has its own agenda. In fact, it's downright out of control. But it's possible for awareness to notice those thoughts and emotions and obsessions and plans and analyses. And in that noticing, there's a freedom that arises. That is the freedom. And so, in a way, we settle back into this present moment and perceive it, know it as it is. There's breathing in it, there's a wandering mind in it, there's desire or disliking. There can be restlessness and concentration, sleepiness, awakeness, great soaring faith or doubt. In addition to the breath, we can stay in touch with the entire body. Regions of coolness and warmth and tingling and vibration. Places of pleasure and pain. One way to exhaust ourselves and make meditation not very interesting is to always be trying to change something, trying to get rid of something. When we're doing that, we create a self that is in opposition to everything. So instead, perhaps settle back into this moment as you might if you climbed into a hammock on this afternoon when it's going to be a nice temperature. Got a nice hammock set up in a really safe place. Put aside all your responsibilities and climb in and then simply rest there. And notice that you're breathing, the body's breathing, notice that there are thoughts. Noticing whatever sounds come. To really take that vacation that you most profoundly want. The vacation from constant striving. Sometimes awareness is so keen, so crisp and awake, that it will notice the very first beginnings of a thought, or when the mind begins to turn toward a thought. Other times it will discover that the mind's been off wandering for minutes, sometimes maybe hours or days sometimes in our lives. But then there is that remarkable phenomenon of waking up. And that waking up is always the same astounding, mysterious, priceless event. Coming home to being now, being awake now. Not just awake from sleep, but actually awake in awareness. For us as participants in modernity, in the world of electronic devices and constant stimulation, this is a really unusual thing to do. To stop, to let the system rest a little bit. To allow that inner eye, the inward focused eye, that of awareness, to have a chance to notice what's happening. And sometimes what we encounter is pretty challenging because we might be in a moment of sadness or fear or anxiety or who knows what. But this is the practice that allows us to realize that all these moods and emotions come and go. They are the inner weather. They're normal, they're human, and we don't have to fight them. So abiding in the breath and the body, notice any discomforts that there are. They're normal too. Human bodies itch and ache and do all kinds of things. Sounds come, sound of voices, no interruption. In just a few moments, I'm going to invite you to let your eyes open. Notice how that's a volitional activity. It requires intention. The eyes don't open by themselves. But one forms an intention, and then one lets that operationalize itself, and then the action can happen. Karmic activity, seeing can happen. But notice how seeing is conditioned by open eyelids. Objects appear. Objects. And then let your eyes, when they're open, rove around a little bit and notice how objects move, it would seem. They move from one side of the peripheral vision to another. And they have characteristics of shape and color. At any moment, if we remember, we can notice that there's awareness and objects. It's a really fun thing I like to do driving and riding my bike, is to watch how the world is rushing into me. There's this awareness, field of awareness, and there's this. That makes me think that I haven't even read the whole email yet, that my friend and marvelous teacher, Mr. How funny, Richard Lang, who teaches the Headless Way, will be visiting us again this winter. So I put that out I don't know when, but it was from him that I learned to travel through the world and watch how the world rushes in. I don't have to do anything, just sitting here and so I want to thank you all for coming this morning. It's such a gift to ourselves and to the world. I'm of a particular belief that what we just did for the last 40 minutes is the single most important action we can do for our own well-being, the well-being of our families, and in fact the well-being of the world. Because we are that. We are the earth. And everything we do here is part of the whole system. We're going to have Jim Dalton, who's gracing us once again with his presence, have him do some movement. I want to say a couple of things first, continue. One is I invite you to support PIMC financially. There's a basket back there, my monk's bowl when I was a monk forever ago in Burma. You can also do it online. And what does that mean? I think this place is really important. I'm in a unique position. I've been teaching here in Portland since 1979. And so I've seen people come and go. And people sometimes show up 30 years later or 25 years later. And something happened in my life. I found myself in a car wreck, or I found myself sitting by the hospital bed of my dying partner, or whatever it was. And I realized it's been years since I practiced, but I knew exactly what to do. Because it's so simple in a way. Right? Come into the present, accept things as they are, breathe, feel the feelings. So there's people, some folks walked through the door today for the first time. There's others, and every Sunday there's somebody new who comes in. And so by supporting this center with your presence and with your volunteering, please raise your hand if you volunteer at PIMC. We'll see. There's a lot. Oh, wow, lots. And there's lots of big things. There's some big things and there's some little things. And Kirsten over there, raise your hand. Kirsten is our volunteer coordinator. One way to participate, the only way to belong here actually is to belong, because we don't have a membership, but it's to come and actually do something like this morning. So we can also contribute online. That's a big help. I want to also celebrate our success in raising the funds for the wheelchair ramp, and we're dealing with the intricacies of the bureaucracy and the fact that the building, according to some code, something or other, doesn't have enough restrooms. And so even though people have been using it in this way for over 100 years, or about 100 years, we have to be sure that it's okay. So, but before long, there will be a door there and a ramp, so those of us who need to come in wheelchairs can come in. I also want to nab you for this. Tricia, would you like to say something about this? No? Okay, good. We are this beautiful planet, taken birth as human beings. Our nervous system is hers. And with Tricia's encouragement and my longing to do something like this, we're tiptoeing into engaging the Dharma in some form of action. We don't know what form that's going to be yet. That's up to you. And the way to find out that we can find out that is that there's a survey which is now available on the website, and it's going to go out to everybody on the listserv. If you're not on the listserv, you can do that on the website, and that means you'll be part of the communication link here at PIMC. You can also fill out a form at the back. You could talk to Avi. Avi, raise hand. And the survey is about your interest, our interests, in some of the various remarkable challenges that we're facing. And as part of this new initiative, we're going to stream through here on Saturday the 15th. There's a day-long teaching at Spirit Rock with Julia Butterfly Hill, Jack Cornfield, my favorite Joanna Macy, Angel Kyoto Williams, and so on, James Barras. And the day is called Loving This Earth, a live stream. So you can come here for the whole day, for part of the day. And that's part of this movement that we're doing to help sensitize ourselves and also to join arms in this, to participate in this remarkable, challenging time that we're having. Maybe, and one big piece of it for me is to overcome any sense of powerlessness and hopelessness and to join up. So, with that, I will relinquish the speaker device to Jim. It'll go to Jim, and then we'll have announcements with Avi, and then I'll be back for a Dharma conversation with you. And I invite you, if you have questions about your practice, have them ready.
All right. Upright and breathing. So we stand on these sensitive feet with toes extended and heels planted and contact with the earth. And at first, when we begin, we set our intention to use mindfulness of the body as a foundation for awareness. The first foundation, according to some writings in the Dharma. What does that mean, foundation? It doesn't mean cement set in inert, lifeless brick. It's a foundation more like a matrix. It's a pasture. It's a place we can go to connect. So this body is a connecting system, sinking into the earth, drawing energy up from the earth, connecting with the earth, intending to recharge the body and release our love and connectedness into the earth. Recharge, release. Sensations of resisting gravity and relaxing and accepting gravity. It's our connectedness. It's easy to accept. We're built to resist and then relax and rebuild. And then just letting the wrists lead us up and out. Let the palms come closer together and then reconnect with the earth. So in this way, the earth is a foundation of our awareness. It gives us energy and receives our love. And there's this tiny little strip of energy called the atmosphere. We can reach up to the sky and paint a rainbow. The earth needs this thin little layer to stay healthy, and we can contribute with our rainbows. And then we can reach up and playfully separate the clouds. 2 weeks ago, I was feeling sorry for myself because the sky was always gray and one color and sooty and smoky. The last 2 days have been spectacular clouds. Conditions changed, my mood changed. Okay, open to the side, palms up, push with one hand, pull in with the other. So that's what we're doing all day long with the Earth's energy. Sending it out, bringing it in. Drop both arms back. Open the shoulder socket as far as is comfortable for your body. And then we can play with gravity a different way. Lifting up, heel comes off the floor, it comes back down. Firmly planted, the other arm goes up. Returns, lifting away from gravity, surrendering. Turning to gaze at the moon, and feeling all the different sensations of twisting the spine and the hips and the shoulders. Pressing across into the corner, then finding the other side. Noticing how the feet rearrange the distribution of weight. The toes dig in or release. And then scooping across with one arm, we breathe in, set the other hand towards the earth and breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. So this is called cloud hands. The upper hand is the cloud, the lower hand is the shadow on the earth. So we're playing with the atmosphere, but we're staying connected to the earth. And then stepping out, we splash in the sea. Rock back, lift the toe. Feel how one leg can take all the weight forward, the other leg can take all the weight back. Come back to the center, step out to the other side. Different image. forward leg is on the other side. The body is conveniently divided in half. We can do one thing on this side. Get the floorboards to talk. Relax the arms, turn, and find some different floorboards. And then back to the first position. Open the arms, palms up. Come forward, palms down. Hummingbird move. We're a little slow, but it's all in the intention. And back to the center. Make a fist, sink into the knees, let the dragon rise from the sea. The power of the earth sweeping across the sea onto the land with a storm. Rejuvenate, re-energize. We have the same sense of agency, using the power of the earth to conduct our lives, sometimes flying with the birds in the sky. Sometimes just gathering friends into a circle. Changing direction, getting the ones you missed on the first time. And then the most interesting way to play with gravity, one arm and one leg. I've been in Colorado, high country for a while. It's not so easy to breathe when you do this at 5,200 feet. I appreciate coming back to the earth here on Portland's surface. Breathe in. Organizing all these movements into one gesture of surrender to gravity, acceptance of the energy from below, surrender. Once more. We come to stillness and feel the gratefulness in all the cells of the body. Especially the cells we call the heart, bringing our hands together in gratitude. Thank our brothers and sisters for joining us, and all those that might be joining in the future on the web. Thank you.
Good morning, Sangha. Can you hear me okay? I have a few announcements. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Avi. I'm community coordinator here, If there's anything I can do to help you access this place in a way that's more in line with what you want to get from it, please let me know. If there's anything you have to offer this place in terms of your skills, ability, time, attention, please let me know or let Kirsten know, the volunteer coordinator. Kirsten, are you still here? She stepped out. Okay, but let Kirsten or me know, and we can find a way to put your talents and your time and your effort to use, because we need everybody. So thank you in advance. For just about everything that I'm going to say, there is either an announcement on the website or there are paper flyers both in the front hall and in the back. That is particularly true of the event flyers for the survey that Robert spoke of and the event on the 15th, the live stream. Those flyers are right there, right on the table inside the Dharma Hall, and if you have a hard time remembering all of this, you can pick up a flyer and then you have it in your pocket. So the first thing is, I could use some volunteer help next Saturday on the 15th during the day. We have the opportunity to get some very nice couches used from an office, and I need somebody with a truck who can lift, who can caravan with me and grab some couches and bring them here. So if you have the time and the truck and the wherewithal to do that, please let me know. On Wednesday, September 12th, in the evening, we've got a new edition of our NVC practice group. That is for people with some NVC training, that's nonviolent communication. There's information on the website. Saturday, September 15th, as we said, we have the Loving This Earth live stream. See the flyers on the website. On Thursday, September 20th through October 25th, we have a new class, The Basics of Mindfulness with Doug Pullen. If you want to get a deep dive into an insight meditation practice, that is the class for you. And that will meet Thursday evenings, and we have the ability to register for that on the website. On Friday, September 21st through Sunday, September 23rd, one of our KM, Kalyana Mita spiritual friends groups out in White Salmon is having a fall forest backpacking and meditation retreat. There are flyers both in the front of the hall and in the living room. If you're interested in that, please let me know, or please grab a flyer and contact them directly. If there are no flyers, let me know. Wednesday, September 26th through November 28th, we have another class, the Eightfold Path class on Wednesday evenings, and that information on that is on the website. On Saturday, October 6th, we have another one of our first Saturday monthly retreats at PIMC, which is a day-long where you can just get to relax and take refuge in the Dharma and the Sangha, and with some guided meditation and some Dharma talks. We have on Sunday, October 7th, our monthly PIMC Mindfulness Orientation session with Robert, which is always the first Sunday of the month at 9 a.m. Sometime this October, we're going to have another edition of Buddhist Movie Night at PIMC, Kubo and the Two Strings. The date is being decided, but look for the website on that. Then on Sunday, October 14th, we have our second Sunday PIMC potluck. We have our potluck today. It is the second Sunday, and there is some food there. Somebody asked me to mention that the offerings for potluck have been rather sparse over the summer, as people have been, their attention has been turned to vacations and stuff like that. So if you want a really nice spread, please bring out those hidden secret family casseroles that you'd like to expose the Sangha to, and that would be just great. And then let's see, what else? Just a little bit more here. Then on Saturday, October 20th, we have a half-day Qigong retreat with Jim. If you liked what he was doing for 10 minutes, you'll love what he does for 4 hours. That'll be on Saturday, October 20th, 10 to 2 a.m. If you wish to engage in this community at a deeper level, we could use your effort and your attention and your time. Please see Kirsten if you'd like to volunteer. We have a number of sits during the week. This is the big one. This is the mothership, but we have smaller ones. And if something more intimate appeals to you, you can find it. Details are on the website. We have spiritual friends groups that allow you to practice with a small group of people in people's homes on your own schedule. And if that's of interest to you, there is a list of existing groups on the website. We also make Dharma consults available to anybody in the Sangha who is interested. If you have something coming up in your practice and you want to talk with an experienced meditator or teacher, or if you want a quick on-ramp to developing a daily practice, contact me and I'll set you up with one of the teachers for a 30-minute Dharma consult. They can do it in person, by phone, or over Skype or video conference. This is a free service that we provide to help reduce suffering in the world. And if you have any questions about wanting to access this community, particularly you folks out there on the internet, and yes, I mean you, please contact me. I'm in the office in the mornings, Monday through Thursdays. Yes? Thank you, I forgot. Yes, we have, thank you very much. We have 2 Karma Yoga, 2 service days where volunteers come in and we get this place cleaned up, and we make it comfy, and we do some minor repairs to it. That is coming up on Saturday the 29th, and details will be on that on the website very shortly.
I will send an email today.
And Kirsten will send an email. Yeah, Michael. Oh, yes, I'm just forgetting things all over the place. So, over here in the treasure chest is treasure, but it's treasure that we no longer need, but somebody else will treasure that treasure, because this stuff goes to the transition projects in Northwest Portland. And anything that you don't need, the folks at the transition projects can use to help the homeless get back on track in their lives. We've been doing this for a number of years, and amazing things happen at that project with your support. So please, just anytime, bring in stuff. We will make sure it gets to the transition project. Is there anything else I've forgotten? Let's see. Sure. Here, let's do this. Microphone. There you go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paul, one of the volunteers here. Lately, I've been kind of managing the camera crew. Those are the folks that sit up there and zoom in and zoom out and follow as Robert walks around up here from time to time. The crew is going through some changes lately, so we're going to need some more people. Ideally, we'd like to have a number of people who can, so we don't have to have people doing it, multiple times per month. So it's just nice to have a group of people who are ready and willing. You don't have to be into AV to do this. You don't have to be an AV geek, really, if you know how to use, mouse and keyboard and, follow the instructions. It's all written down. It's generally pretty simple. It's a very unique way to practice, to be up there. There's other people up there, so you're not entirely alone. But it's just a very unique way to practice. If you feel like you're ready to kind of do some meditation while paying attention to something else. I love it. I think it's a great way to sort of a unique and different way to explore your practice. So definitely get in touch with me or with Kirsten. We'd love to get you on the roster. The training is pretty simple. You basically, somebody will kind of walk you through it 1 or 2 times, and it's all written down. It's pretty easy to do. So yeah, please join us.
Nice group of folks too, and there is an invisible Sangha out there that we cannot see that watches us live stream or that accesses these recordings after the Dharma session is over. There are hundreds of people that watch these recordings, and that would be a really powerful way of making sure that the Sangha continues. Is there anything else I've forgotten? Apparently not. Okay, good. Blessings to you all. Have a wonderful day.
Well, friends, it's tempting to just stay in silence. I don't know whether it's age or what, but I'm finding a greater and greater pull toward that myself. But I do have a little reading, very brief, I want to share with you. It's Alan Watts. Oh, speaking of Alan Watts, the beautiful circle you see behind the Buddha was a table created by Ruth Denison, and she made several of them. There's one behind the Buddha at Dhammadina, her meditation center that she created in the desert in California. And anyway, when she visited at the grand opening, and she said, "Oh, I have something for you." So the next time I was there with a vehicle, she gave me that, and we tied it on top of the van and drove home with it. It was kind of wild. But anyway, she said, "Darling, around this table sat Alan Watts," and she named off a bunch of other luminaries, and then she said, "And they were on acid." And I was their mama. So there's some history to this beautiful thing. So from Alan Watts. This feeling of being lonely and very temporary visitors in the universe is in flat contradiction to everything known about humans and all other living organisms in the sciences. We do not come into this world, we come out of it. As leaves come from a tree, as the ocean waves, the universe peoples. Every individual is an expression of the whole realm of nature, a unique action of the entire universe. This feeling of being lonely and very temporary visitors in the universe is in flat contradiction to everything known about humans and all other living organisms in the sciences. We do not come into this world. We come out of it as leaves come from a tree. As the ocean waves, the universe peoples. Every individual is an expression of the whole realm of nature, a unique action of the total universe. How do you like that? What if that's really true about that which you take to be you? A unique action of the total universe. It would say something about belonging, that we really belong here. We are here. We are the earth. The truth of impermanence is becoming clearer and clearer in my experience. I've been talking about utter impermanence for 40 years teaching. But the fact of it being true is becoming more and more real. And the fact that every relationship, everything with a beginning has an ending. Every relationship that has a beginning has an ending. Which means that every relationship we have exists in time. And one way that one can hear that is kind of with fear. It's like, oh no. And there is that. And another way to hear it is how extraordinary, what the privilege that we have to have each other when we have each other. And in this heightened sense of impermanence, I'm having it's a silly image, but maybe it's a kind of Amazon-like image. My life seems to be like this. I'm at the end of a conveyor belt, and it's rather fast. And there are packages coming along the conveyor belt. Some of them are light, some of them are heavy, some of them are big, many of them are small. They have an address on them, and I get to get it, read the address, relate to it intimately, and put it onto the right place. And it's that way with my dog and my friends and with each of you that I make eye contact with now. It's that reality is almost tachistoscopic. It's like it presents and then it's over. It's over, it's over, it's over. And so the attitude, it's becoming clearer and clearer to me, the attitude with which I approach this moment is of utmost importance. Because I could be avoiding it, I could be intoxicated out of my mind somehow, I could be preoccupied so that I don't really see the packages coming, or I can be, and sometimes I am, right here. Oh, it's this package. I've been waiting for this. How nice. Oh, I still want, oh, that one's gone. And so that leads to, oops, that's not an experience I treasure. A little jab from the hamstrings. It leads to cherishing this life and to then doing what the moment calls for, with as much love and compassion as possible. And I was thinking this morning, I get up early. I love the early morning before the light comes. And I was doing my usual, so what Dharma talk should I offer this morning? And I went through the list of, there's so many lists. My one joke that I remember, do you know why it's kind of boring and tedious to talk to Buddhists? They always speak with a list. And none of the lists lit up. None of them said, yeah, this one. So I see it as quite a responsibility to play this role. That to have your hearts and ears open as they are now, for you to have taken the time to come on a Sunday morning, that it's important that what is spoken is relevant and is not mere distraction. So with the impetus of the lists falling away, I want to do what I sometimes do, which is to ask if you have a question. Do you have a question, particularly about your practice? And that question can guide us, can be our doorway in. So if you do, I invite you to take this, for some people, threatening microphone. It's actually it's a great act of generosity to use a microphone, especially if you don't like it. But in any case, number one, it allows our friends at home on the internet to see this. Oh, and Avi was speaking about how many people. Sometimes over the next week or so, 100 or more people will watch the broadcast. I don't know how many there are live, but there's probably 8 to 10 to 15 people watching live right now. Hi again. And then there's the podcast. Ben, are you here? Where's Ben? Yeah, there you are. Great. We now, thanks to Ben, have podcasts, which are available. So you can just download and they do the audio thing. And there's 60 to 100 people who listen to them a week. And so the gift one gives when you speak into the microphone is that they can hear. So it's giant. So if you would say your name, and then if you have a question or something just to share about your practice. Actually, I think I want to do something unusual. Wally, would you take a minute and say something about your practice?
I just love being put on the spot. Thank
I
you.
know. I'm sure you'll struggle with it terribly.
Yeah, I just finished 7 days silent in Cloud Mountain.
Closer.
Cloud Mountain. I recommend it highly. It's a wonderful place. It's only 60 miles north of us by Longview, right out of Castle Rock. And I've been sitting every day now for over 400 days. And before I was doing that, before going to the meditation and the retreat, and my feeling was that was, if you think of an aircraft carrier, you think of a plane taking off, that 400 days of sitting was like the catapult lifting the plane into the air. The retreat was like the flying, oh, so free and just, and enjoying and coming to myself. And the return has been, the driving back was like trying to land the plane back on the carrier, trying to match the speeds and everything, because it's going 40 miles an hour. You're doing 150 or 200 miles an hour. And then getting to the house and being back to being a householder was like that landing when that cable gets caught as the plane lands. Suddenly you're going from 150 miles an hour to 0 within about 50 yards. Boom! So I'm coming back. But that is, the practice has been just wonderful. It keeps opening, things keep opening up, and I don't know exactly. I worked in a project-oriented world, and it's always what's next. That's not how this works, at least for me. The what next gets revealed after something happens. So enjoy, and I hope you find great joy and love in your practice.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Wally. So, anybody else? Question, please. Oh, did you have your hand up? Why don't you take it first and then share it second?
So you mentioned.
Your name?
Oh, I'm Laura. You mentioned this last week. It was a question last week. We talked about it a little bit, but I could use a little broader analysis because I'm having a very hard time with the difference between acceptance and being passive. It's hard. Like I used to be a very aggressive person, and if something was wrong, I'd try and correct it right away, without any Buddhist principles. And so now that I'm trying to keep my practice in mind and be mindful and have intention, I try to just be just let it go, be in the moment, and it's very frustrating because I just feel passive. So.
Thank you. Very important question, isn't it? Did I talk about the Gandhi movie last week? I don't think so. I have an image that pops up when people ask this. One of my favorite movies of this lifetime, the Ben Kingsbury rendition of Gandhi. So Gandhi was very active in India, and things started really rolling, and then people started killing each other. It got really out of hand. And he said, I will have no part of this. And he withdrew. He just dropped. And he was gone a year. Long time. And he went and he spent, and it showed him in the movie, and who knows what was really true, but in the movie it showed him walking and sitting and pondering, how do I do this? How do I do this? And then there's this great scene where he's under he's on the riverbank anyway. It's a gorgeous moment. He's on the riverbank, and you see him all of a sudden, and he's very quiet, obviously very quiet. And he lights up, and he has an idea. And the idea was the Salt March. And then, I don't know if some of you, maybe some of you don't know the story, many of you maybe, the British were requiring the Indians to buy salt from England. And there's plenty of salt in the ocean around India. And so he had this idea, he would walk to the sea, and he would let the press know, and and that he would then overwhelm the British prisons because they'd have to arrest so many people. And so he sets off on this walk. He's an pretty old fellow, probably my age, actually. He sets off walking to the sea, and tens of thousands of people join him. And then they go to the sea, and they make salt, and the British arrest them, and they get completely overwhelmed, and they have to capitulate. But he figured out a way to do something that was very confrontational, but absolutely not violent. And in the eyes of the world, it was so obvious, of course they can make salt. Right? The British had a tyrannical, utterly absurd, funny thoughts happening here. They had figured out a way of sucking the wealth to the top, and the little people were getting less and less. And there was a way that had to be confronted, and it was. And he figured out how to do it with no violence. And then what comes up secondly is that beautiful, it's actually an old Irish prayer, which the people who created AA took out of the middle of this prayer. It's, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That is such a wise... the prayer goes on, living each day one moment at a time, even as he did, reference to Jesus. It's a Christian prayer. So, universe, grant me the wisdom to know, the courage, the wisdom to know the things I cannot, the capacity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. One place where the only sensible approach is acceptance is with our own minds. When you're sitting in meditation, to not accept what's here now is to be in constant war and constant delusion. And it's a poignant realization. Right? I'm meditating, and let's say there's sadness or fear or anger or rage or sexual desire or joy or bliss. And no, I won't feel that. I won't feel that. I'm going to feel this. I'm going to feel that. So our meditation isn't about taking refuge in awareness and encountering the Dharma. It's about, I have a view of how I should be, and I'm going to change that. So there's a constant battle, and people with that attitude don't meditate for long, because how can you? As opposed to, I will accept for the next 20 minutes, 10 minutes, seconds, I will accept this mind as it is. Then, that doesn't mean that I become passive and always allow the mind to run roughshod over me. It might be, there's a lot of sadness here, so I'm going to turn toward that sadness and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to open up into it. Or there's anger. I'm going to find out what that anger is about. There's a very active, it's non-passive in that we're directing awareness to open up into it and to explore it. In the activity of daily life, or circumstances of daily life, our propensity is to react. There's a great book by Stephen Batchelor. I'm forgetting the title of it. His most recent book. The whole book is about that. The essence of the Buddha's teachings is, I want to respond rather than react. And I can only move to a place of responding rather than reacting if I have lots of mindfulness. If I have lots of awareness of my emotions, if I know what beliefs I'm succumbing to, or what my intention is, how I want to be. And that's a lot to do when in comes the flaming arrow. And the mammalian response is, there really is a developmental stage for us of restraint and what feels a lot like passivity and unresponsiveness. But that it's so interesting watching what arises as I'm trying to speak. The profound difference in relationship when other person says, let's say says something, and it comes in and it hurts, and it moves to fear, and it goes to anger, and the mouth fires off, and we're off to war. For some years, quite a while ago now, I did couples therapy for several years, and it was so remarkable to see myself in these other people, but to see a couple, and one person would say ABC, and the other person would respond LMN, as though they hadn't heard this, and then this person would respond as though the other person had heard it but hadn't responded. And what became obvious was that these people were in separate hallucinations. And then more and more I began to realize that's the way it is when I'm in conflict in my own relationship. That I don't have the mindfulness to notice, oh, you said this, and the movement, a huge movement, is person X says this, and then it comes in, pow. And if the response can be, wow, that hurt. I'm feeling kind of hurt right now. I may need to take a few minutes to digest what you said, and then the whole toolbox of nonviolent communication, which helps us communicate skillfully about our feelings and needs. But if we can't pause, passive, receptive, long enough to see what happens, it takes a little while for the physiology to respond, and also to be mindful of the thoughts that come into play. So with that capacity to pause and to be open internally and maybe compassionate externally, we then we're in a position to then decide about our action, and sometimes our action may be pretty vigorous. There might be something really powerful to say, or we may at some point in our lifetimes have to put our life on the line over something that is just, this is not acceptable to me, this is not going to happen. But to do that from a place of great depth and compassion, rather than reactivity. What I was thinking of then with that life on the line thing, remember maybe it's about a year ago or 2 years ago, that very insane person killed a couple of people on the Max. And he was looking for victims. I mean, he'd been talking the day before, and he was very ill. And I realized that I would have been one of those men. I would, if someone were harassing two young women, I would stand up and say, excuse me, maybe we need to talk. And I don't want to stop doing that. I want to be willing to do that. And and who knows for us what circumstances will come in our lifetime where we won't be, oh, excuse me, I have to go meditate. It'll be, wow, I've got thousands of hours of meditation under my belt now, and I can feel and see and know what's happening, and I can be like Gandhi sitting on that riverside, that this is a moment when I'm going to do this. But the root of it isn't in hatred or greed, it's in love. Is that any help?
Yes, that's very helpful. I think especially what you said about responding rather than reacting is like, and it's nice and simple. It's a very simple phrase. You can follow it easily. It also reminds me, for some reason, it reminded me a little bit of, if you ever saw the movie Fight Club, when Brad Pitt pours the chemicals on Robert Norton's hand, and he's giving him a chemical burn, and he says, "This is your burning hand. It's right here. This is the greatest moment of your life." And I don't know why. That's an incredibly extreme example, but. But yeah, I think I know what you're saying.
to respond rather than react.
Yeah.
That's where we become humans.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, let me say one more thing about that. We have a back door here to the garden. My little white dog, some of you have met him. His name is Budo. He's been my pal for a long time. He comes to work with me, and I let him out a couple of times a day into the backyard. He always sits at the back door, and because there's squirrels. And he loves to chase the squirrels. And I've been with 2 of these miniature huskies in the mountains. They kill squirrels. This is not a game. And if the squirrel makes a mistake, Budo would kill him. A single miniature husky doesn't seem to be able to catch them, which is good. But I've sat him down, quite literally. I've sat there with him 4 or 5 times and said, Budo, this is karmically bad. Right? If you want, it scares the squirrel, and I know you're not playing, so when I open this door, just walk out and go pee. He never gets it. Stimulus, response. We as humans, we're capable of extraordinary circumstances of restraint and response. The couple of Tibetan monks, one was the Dalai Lama's doctor, captured, tortured by the Chinese. And when they were asked, were you ever worried? Were you ever worried during your torture? He said, yes, there was a time when I began to not feel compassion for my torturers. And weirdly, amazingly, and factually, some of these men who were tortured, monks, or spent a lifetime meditating, did not have PTSD following their torture. That's not normal. But they never lost meaning. They never lost their sense of humanity because they were somehow or another able to maintain compassion. Forgive them, for they know not what they do, from a famous Christian moment. So please, next.
My name is Bryce. I had something else I was going to ask, but you actually addressed it. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to celebrate in an example of an expansion in my practice.
Great. Hold the mic a little closer. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. I was recently at the YMCA building something, and it was riveting to the children who were watching. They were probably around 5 or 6, and they were guessing at what I was building. And even though it had been explained what I was building to them a time or two, they were in love with the question, what are you building? And then at some point, a jokester amongst them, I mean, there was probably 15 all along this fence, riveted.
That's weird. Huh. Let me see. That's not the way that usually quits.
I know.
Let me just let me just put batteries in it again.
Okay.
Funny. You're an electric person. Electrifying. How funny. Test 1, 2, 3. Yes. One, two. Yeah. Great.
So there I was. And they either refused to listen or were more interested in asking it again and again what I was building. And then there was a jokester amongst them who I identified with in positive and negative ways. And he decided to start making fun of me in a way. He was opposed to saying they were calling me Mr. Builderman, and then he tweaked that into Mr. Poop Builder.
An obvious transition.
If you want a group of people to follow you,
Right.
start saying Mr. Poop Builder instead. So I then, and it was amazing that even in a small group of children, or a group of small children, that were making a joke, the model of the bully is palpable, even if it's in this sort of seemingly innocuous situation where it's funny and the kids are, and it's funny, you know, they all getting, at least a few of them are getting a laugh, and then others would join. And I could feel it hurt my feelings. And I felt bullied by these tiny people. And it was hard to focus on what I was doing. I felt very alone. I felt spotlighted, and it felt terrible.
Shame.
I was feeling ashamed.
Yeah.
And now at this point, 2 or 3 of them were saying the same thing on and off. It was catching on. And by the time I turned to the group, I was, formulating what I wanted to say. I had an opportunity. And by the time I looked, the little one who was saying this now, yeah, you could tell that he was unconsciously saying it. He was not the one who thought of it. He was just sort of saying it in the air automatically because it was the joke that was happening. And I just turned to this person and I said, "That's not my name, and that hurts my feelings." Total silence. It was a showstopper. And all of these children were just wide-eyed and didn't know what to do.
Mm.
And I just let that hang, and I went back to my work, and it never returned.
Nice.
And it was so lovely because it was just this opportunity to not out-joke them, not try to beat them at the game, not try to conquer them in some way, but just let them know that it...
And also not to let it persist.
Right.
I
To
mean,
take
think of
action.
how much is being said by people who are unconscious of the meaning of it culturally. Right? The latitude that we're being given as a culture to speak ill of Muslims or people of a different skin color or people of a different sexual persuasion. That in the name of free speech, we give people the permission that they think it's okay. And how wonderful to have an adult male say, "That's not my name, and it hurts me." Oh. So, good job. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Question, please. Mickey.
Hello, I'm Mickey. I've been thinking about and meditating about the idea of not self, anatta, and then also the 5 aggregates, which were the things that Buddha identified that just arise up in us that we think of as this permanent fixed self. And I'm finding that like really stimulating, but at the same time, big decisions will come up, and I'll think, if it's something sort of a 50-50 decision, I'll be like, well, who's deciding this? And, where does this personality come from? And how do, sort of how do I sort out things? If I, just trying to sort of balance these big ideas, this idea that, I don't have to be so attached to this story that I've taken with me my whole life, that's kind of ephemeral. But on the other hand, I'm kind of responsible for my life and my relationships and choices that I make. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
Could you phrase it as a question?
As a question?
Try again, maybe, for me. Help me, please.
If the Buddha was right and there's no permanent self, and that's kind of illusory, who is it within us that's making big decisions?
Small questions, huh? The easy ones. Oh yeah, I know the answer to that. One of my teachers, a man named Matt Flickstein, summed up the absolute versus the relative question this way. There's nobody here. Everything's happening all by itself. There's no choices to be made. So relax. Is one pole. And the other is, you are absolutely responsible for everything you say and do, and you will be held responsible. And both are true. Crap. What do you do with that?
Thanks a lot.
Next, pass on the microphone. So, how many billion years did this universe of galaxies and stars and oceans and exist before you were born? And how many will persist? How many will occur when you don't exist anymore? We are less than a punctuation point. Right? And there are very highly articulated theories, the religions, including Buddhism generally, that have fantastic stories about where one was before and where one will be after and whether one will go up or will go down. But these are the stories of religion. These are in my experience, these are the stories we tell to create continuity and a sense of security. But if we reflect on it, this is back to that package handling business that I experience. In that absolute scale, what matters? Nations? Standard of living? I mean, this earth will be consumed by the sun when it supernovas or something. The notion that we're here permanently, and who knows, we may well be past the fail-safe point for human life on the earth. I mean, that's a real possibility. It may be done. We may be cooked. As have 98% or 99% of all the species that ever walked the earth. They've all gone because the experiment is ongoing. So that's that big perspective. There's nobody here. Now, on that other, here, this is real. This is real, and my relationship with you is real and precious and one of a kind. And my guitar is real. I love this guitar, and my computer, and my children, and nations this delusion of nation states and sharing and not sharing and public policy, and those are all, they're the playground we get to inhabit while we're in our apparent separateness. And the aggregates, body, feeling, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, those are in themselves all ephemeral, and that all becomes apparent in deep meditation. The fact that thoughts think themselves into being, there's no one who thinks them, gets pretty obvious. But in the meantime, here I sit, and I am presented with a choice to make. How shall I choose? And that's where we do our lists, and we sit in meditation. And from the book, If You Meet the Buddha on the Road, Kill Him, by Sheldon Kopp, who he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he was very psychotherapist. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor and wrote 3 fantastic books in the next year and a half before he died. But in that, there's one chapter. He calls it the eschatological checklist or something. One of them is all of life's real decisions are made on the basis of insufficient evidence. The real decisions of our lives are made from way deep inside. And some very interesting research about that and the self. They hooked, I should get the reference for this sometime, they hooked experimental subjects up with brainwave fancy PET scans, I think. And then they gave them 2 buttons. And they said, sit here for the next 20 minutes, and whenever you feel like it, press one button or the other. But press it as soon as you know. Like when you think, so, will I push the right one or the left one? Right, left, right. Guess how much ahead of time the experimenters knew which button was going to be pressed? It was almost half a second. So before it's pretty quick. I know I'm going to do it now. It's maybe a tenth of a second or less. That the decision had been made deeper in the brain than cognition. That's happening all the time. We're making decisions based upon our deep conditioning. One of the reasons for lots of meditation is we can alter our deeper and deeper and deeper conditionings. For one thing, we're teaching the amygdala, the fight-flight centers, we're teaching that to cool it. It's okay. Just because her tone of voice reminds you of your mother doesn't mean she is your mother. So, is that any help? I think we it's a cop-out to say, oh, there's no self, therefore I'm not going to even engage. It's much wiser to say, well, here's this, and I have it for such a short time. And it's only functional some of the time. Right? I watch my own capacity to be functional. It waxes and wanes, and I got sick over the summer, and I could hardly do anything. And sometimes the heart is real open, and one can be very compassionate and relational. Other times it's always in this. So then when the moments come when we actually can connect or be effective or try to be effective, then why not? Does that make sense? And then we see what happens, and we never know.
Thanks, sincerely.
I do have a practice of decision. Please, Morgan. I have a practice that I've done for many years, which is when I have one of those questions which is really difficult and the mind is worrying, I try to articulate it as clearly as I can. And then I fold it all up very nicely. I write it on nice paper by hand. I fold it all up nice, and I put it under the Buddha. And if I have a week till I have to decide, I decide for the next week, whenever that thought comes up, I'm going to dismiss it. And so sometimes hundreds of times, dismissed. And however, on Sunday evening at 5 o'clock, I will go and I'll sit for an hour, and then I'll unfold that paper and see what arises. And it's quite surprising how often, that's right, that's what to do. Not always, but because it's relegating it to something much deeper and wiser. Please, Morgan.
Hello, my name is Morgan. My question for you is, why should I intend to feel pain, to feel dukkha? The reason I'm asking this question is because the mind is so very good at being anywhere but the present. And it can do such a good job of taking the mind places where it doesn't feel pain, sadness, dukkha. So why, if the mind is able to do that, why should I intend to feel the dukkha?
The shorthand is because the way out is through. And we have many ways not to feel our pain. I mean, we as a species are the great masters of distraction and intoxication. It's really it's a great coping skill. It's a great way to stay out of touch with what's happening. But I fell on my bike on Tuesday, I think it was. I had a music lesson the next morning, a guitar lesson, and I could hobble, so I made my way to my lesson. I discovered when I was there, I couldn't play anything. I was close to tears. And I hadn't really realized that till I got there. I mean, literally my fingers wouldn't work right. There was pain happening, physical pain, but also there was an emotional pain, a shock, a trauma from the day before that was it was requiring all my energy. And when we have unencountered pain from childhood or pain from last week, or when the body's in pain right now, we're using a tremendous amount of effort, energy to keep it blocked and to stay in denial of it. And so we can't function very well. And if we want to really become virtuosos in our lives, to play our lives fully, we really must be willing to stop and face the pain, face what's real, face how disappointing so many things are. I mean, one of the things that happens with meditation over time is that there comes a certain disillusion, an important disillusionment, that we're conditioned. There's this fantasy that happiness lies at Costco, or there's that this vacation is finally going to make you happy, or another child will really do it, and let's do it. And then at a certain point, if we become disillusioned, and we realize more and more consumption and the constant increasing gross national product, and that it doesn't do it. And the only way we come to that realization is to pause long enough to realize, I feel I just had that wonderful this or that experience. So what? It wasn't that big a deal. So what if I face into that, and then we discover, the capacity to feel things as they are is so satisfying, right? To let things be, to let your relationship be really as it is. It's such a relief to move out of always trying to change this other person, or always trying to change yourself. So it has to do with contact with reality is much more pleasant and much more relaxed than trying to avoid it. And the pains are there. Does that make sense? I'm trying to do it quickly because I think the kids are in the chute. Is that?
Yes, thank you.
I know when I started this meditation in my early 20s, I was in so much pain. I did not want to face what I was encountering. In fact, on my first meditation retreat, I went through marijuana withdrawal. I'd been so stoned for months, trying to get away from a breakup in a relationship in India, that really by day 5 or 7 or 10, I was having significant marijuana withdrawal. It was hard. But we do need to ultimately, I mean, the Buddha is a great example of a person who really sobered up. He sobered up and relaxed and turned toward where the hurting was and discovered what? Love. Love and compassion and kindness. And his whole life, for 42 years, just became giving. Because he realized there wasn't a self to try to get stuff for. He realized, what there are is there's us, and for the most part, we're very deluded, so why not be generous? So thanks for the questions, thanks for listening. Mostly thanks for coming and for practicing at home. And I will not be here next Sunday. Christine Howard will be here. I'll be camping on a little river 4 hours south with my wife and my 2 stepkids. Her birthday is this Saturday, and we're going to have a few days together. So please come and participate with Christine. She's a marvelous teacher, psychologist, with really a wonderful understanding of the Dharma. So the kids are going to come in. We will sit in the middle, and any one of you who would like to be with us, you get closer for blowing out the candle if you sit in the inner circle. And then there's some food and opportunity to talk and share in the other room after that. All right, bring them in. Could we have the microphone up to the kids area, please? Oh boy. You stayed.
Yes.
Yay. What's your name?
Daria.
Daria? Robert.
Nice to meet you.
And?
Ashley.
Ashley. You have a climbing rope as part of your... Cool. Now let's see if I can get down here. Yo. Thank you. Oh, I need 2, at least 2, given... Hi. You're all sitting over there. Can you scooch in here? Thank you very much. Yay. So, holding hands. How wonderful in the vastness of the universe to find another human hand. Where did you come from? So, this mind can do anything. Why not have it think a kind thought for the person on your right? May you be really happy. May you find great ease in every moment of life. To the person on your left, and give that hand a little squeeze. Let it be personal. What would be your deepest blessing that you could offer to this person? And then the person sitting between these hands, we could practice the powerful secret mantra, I love you, with your own name at the end. Or your own name when you were little. And so wishing this, extending this greeting that we have around our circles, out into the homes around us, in fact, to all beings. We all appear and disappear. Just that is plenty to result in us loving each other. And do we have singers? Yay! 3. I'm going to hand you that. 1, 2, 3.
May all
beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very, watch your hand. There we go. There, wonderful. No one caught fire. It's great. Thank you. Well, everyone gets to make a wish. You folks at home get to make a wish too. A wish. These human minds capable of such things. So taking our wish deeply into our hearts and then a great breath in. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yes! Whoa! Wow, that was sports. Thank you very much for coming. I look forward to connecting with you. Bye-bye. That was hard. It was a stubborn flame.